Okay, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, honorable speakers, and distinguished guests, okay, from Cambodia and around the world. So, next presenter must be Associate Professor Maitree Inprasitha. Okay, he is the Vice Rector of Khon University, Thailand. Okay, he is going to present professional learning community development in Thailand. So yeah, it is not a live presentation. Our team will play pre-recorded video about this presentation. Okay, so yes, good morning, Professor Maitree.
Good
If
morning.
I pronounce, yeah, if I pronounce
Ye-
your name incorrectly, please give
Yes,
me pardon.
yes,
Okay.
it's good.
Yes.
It was Maitree. You can come on
Okay.
Maitree.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So thank you so much for giving up your time for joining our conference, the international conference that I think your every presentation will be useful for Cambodian teachers or international teachers in the world that can they implement your experiences and knowledge in their schools and as well as developing their countries, especially Asian countries that we need the new techniques. We need to especially STEM for the developing ASEAN communities. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, right now I would like to invite our participants, excellencies, honorable guests, and yeah, speakers, please joining us, welcoming Professor Maitri for his pre-recorded video, and then please during his presentation, please drop your question in the chat box for us. And I once again I would like to say sorry if your question will not be answered all because time limitation. So the good deal that you can get answers from professors, you can drop your answer in the chat box, and then we will prepare the question for sending to doctor professor, and then you can correct him privately for more explanation. Okay, thank you so much. Right now, please welcome Professor Maitri Inprasit for the presentation. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Uh, I am Maitree Inprasitha, the Vice President for Education and Educational Service from Khon University, Thailand. Would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizing committee to invite me to be speakers in the Cambodia First International Conference on Mentoring Educators, which is going to be during the 3 days. Yeah. The topic I would like to share with you is the professional learning community development in Thailand, PLC in Thailand. As of my background, I have been in Japan for I think for many years. In fact, for 10 years, I have been in the training course of the Ministry of Education of Japan 30 years ago. I spent 1.5 years there, and after I got back for 3 years, then I went to Japan again to earn my master's degree in education and doctoral degree in education, and spent another 8 years in Japan. So totally, I spent nearly 10 years has been trained and study in Japan. And very lucky that during the times I was in Japan, And by the end of the 20th centuries, or before turning into the 21st centuries, I have been noticing many things, especially in the communities of teachers. I mean, in Japan, how the Japanese teachers has been emphasized and focused on what we call a classroom teaching practice. I have been observing many schools in Japan, from south of Japan, from I can say from Kyushu to Hokkaido, and especially the attached school to the University of Tsukuba, where I'm studied. The main differences from the how the teachers in Thailand works and how Japanese teacher work is, our teachers, I mean Thai teachers, work separately and very lonely in school. Even they work in school. But in Japan, I noticed that the schools teachers has been working as a member of community. During that time, I didn't notice that they has a strong professional learning community in the schools. But after years that I visit many schools, and I met a number of school teachers, and then I participate in a big event every year when they demonstrate the innovation for teachings every year. Then I have come to realize that when we work as a school teachers to dealing with the classroom teaching practice, especially the way to improve the classroom teaching practice, we have to work as a professional learning community. Then after I got back in Thailand in 1999, the last year before we entering the 21st century, then I had a plan that how can I implement this idea. I have an experience in Japan. So I'm started to think the way that we can gradually introduce the what we call a Japanese lesson study, which is embedded in a Japanese school culture for more than 150 years. So in this sense, I think it is very challenging to how I can even say that to modify or to adapt and to implement these ideas in Thailand. I'm started to things that the main focus of a Japanese education is not the content as we really implement or works. I'm also have an experience as a school teacher. My focus when I was in the classroom is try to teach, to covering every content through every topics in the textbooks or appear in the textbook. But when I noticed the Japanese classrooms, the focus is not only the contents through the topic, but the long-term goals of the education, especially mathematics education in my specialized is mathematical thinkings. But in classroom practice, how we can capture the mathematical thinking is a big issue in Japan during the decades of 1950, 60, and 70. They developed a new way of teachings. They call the open-ended approach or open-ended method. In order to change the way we deliver the content to the students, they spend most of the times to design the problem situations that open enough to accommodate the student idea in that situation, instead of directly deliver the content to the student. I think this is very innovative method to my experience. Then I'm noticing that they try to capture the mathematical thinking. This very dynamics when we work in classroom teaching practice. They have an examples in a big research project during, if I remember, if my memory is not wrong, is 1970. In the decade of 1970, they have a big research project in Japan to help to support the school teachers to assess or to evaluate the high order thinkings of the students in the classroom. I think this is also very interesting to me too. And I'm trying to summarize what I should implement from the histories of educational development in Japan into Thailand. How we can chip away from focus on content per se through the topic to focus on mathematical thinkings, which should be the long-term goal of when we teach, say, like mathematics in school. So after I got back, and I'm repeat again, then around 1999 to 2001, I'm trying to build up a new program of teacher education in Thailand. During that time, we still focus on 4-year teacher education program. And I introduced the idea of open-ended approach, which I focus on open-ended problem to introduce in the school through the practice of the student teachers around 2002. And working in a number of schools in Khon nearby. I think around 7 schools through some 15 student teachers. I work with them through the process of lesson study. We plan the lesson together. I plan the lesson, meaning as we prepare a problem situation which embedded with open-ended problems in order to create the mathematical activity, and then they bring this problem situation into the schools, and then they do their practicum teaching for the whole semester. It lasts like 4 months and a half. Then every Friday, these group of student teachers have to bring back some of the student idea when their student engaging in problem situation, and then with the evidence and discuss with me every Friday. And then a bit they come to realize that, in this sense, a number of students with, say, incapable student in most of the school teachers say that, incapable student, they don't want to study, but interestingly, they provide a very interesting idea in this new environment of classroom. They just keep saying to their student, I mean the student teacher, that keep saying to their student that, oh, you can solve the problem from your own point of view. It doesn't care, it doesn't mind. Yeah. It's no right or wrong. You can provide your idea with your reason, thing like this. Then by the end of the semesters of 2002, our student teachers have to come realize that there has been new experience of becoming a school teachers. Then I'm encourage them to continue the master's degree and doctoral degree. And so far, we can work with this group of we say that a teacher educator. When we come at the times that how we can implement this idea through, says, a whole school approach, not just through a practice of student teacher. This is a big challenge too. So in the year 2006, started a new challenge by working with the two pioneer schools in the Khon nearby. I can name the school is Khon Pithiyasan School. It's a kind of expansion schools in Samsung district. It's just 30 kilometers far from Khon. And another school is Chumchon Ban Chonabot. I would like to say name the school because they work with us for more than 10 years. This is like 50 kilos south of Khon. I work with these two schools. I name it as whole school approach. We design the process of lesson study. We simplify the process of lesson study into 3 steps. We collaboratively plan the lesson together. We collaboratively plan, plan together. Then we implement the lessons with some a member of the team observe, and then by the end of the week we come to a reflection leading by the school principals. We try to create this kind of cycles. It's a new way of stimulating or facilitating teachers to work together in the school, which usually in a traditional way they work lonely or separately. But now in this new way, they create, I would like to call it as a unit of professional learning community, because in each band with like the first grade, the second grade, and third grade, they works as a one team. We call lesson study team, and then another team, 4, 5, 6, and then junior 1, 2, 3. So at least we have 3 lessons at a team in the school. And by the end of the week, I call them at a weekly cycles. After they have teaching the lesson plan in the class, then they bring back the student idea with some evidence, and then by the end of the week, the whole school member, I mean the teachers who do not in the lesson study to join to reflect, to learn what the student idea when they engaging in problem situation. We spend this kind of lesson study every week, and if I'm more specifically, I'm trying to change the role of the teachers through the way I call it open approach. I develop this teaching approach from the open-ended approach. The idea of the open approach is we try to focus on the how we can encourage the student to have their own problems, because this is very important to get their higher order thinkings. They have to have their own problem. Then the second phase of the open approach that I'm created is to solve the problem. Then I create a 4 step based on this idea. The first 2 steps, the school teachers pose the problem that they prepare outside the classroom, and then let the students solve the problem by themselves, and then the members of the team observe the student and then take note and to get the idea with the applicant. Then in the third step of open approach, they bring the idea, every idea raises up in the classroom in order to communicate amongst other students, in order that the student can become aware of their own idea or other student idea. And by the end of the fourth phase of open approach, then these idea will become how to learn for each student. When we weaving the three step of lesson study and the four step of open approach together, or we from the point of view, or we can incorporate the four step of open approach into the three step of lesson study, meaning that we create a weekly cycles for this is the idea that I adapt the Japanese lesson study into Thai school. And I remember when I went to South Africa, if I'm not wrong, when I organized a workshop at Central University of Texas, my friends kindly named the new way of introducing lesson study into Thailand, which I'm very appreciate to use that name. He told me that, Maitree, you introduce lesson study into Thai school through the way you incorporate the open approach in lesson study. So he called the term the open approach lesson study is quite unique for lesson study as a professional learning community in Thailand, which I would like to share with you if you are interested in more detail how we expand this idea across the country. So far we have more than I think nearly 300 schools across the country with 8,000 educational personnel and more than 100,000 of school of students has been engaging in this innovation in Thailand. Thank you very much for your attention. And I would like to say thanks again for the organizing committee to provide me a chance to share my experience in this very important conference. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much indeed for the enlightened presentation about professional learning community development in Thailand. Okay, so yes, I think personally, I think this presentation will be useful for teachers that they intend to develop their school in Cambodia as well in the international yeah context. Okay, so right now we have some questions that are waiting for your answer. So now I would like to okay, read the first question for you, Professor. Okay,
Yes.
so the first one is from Cambodia, from Miss Janti. So talking about the professional learning community development. So how can we maintain a long-term goal effectively? Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes. Theoretically, uh, lesson study will start like to set the long-term goals. But seeing from the classroom teacher, this is not easy because we are so familiar with teaching through to the topic. So we cannot see the long-term goal. So the long-term goal should be focused on the process first. That's why I incorporate the way we teach, the new way we teach mathematics. I call open approach, the fourth step of open approach, incorporate in a modified lesson study step. You see that I modify the lesson study step, only three steps. Then the long-term goal will focus on the three steps of lesson study. How can we plan the lesson together? How can we teach and then someone of the member observe the lesson? And then how can we reflect together? As I show in the slides, then the long term is how we can maintain this cycle. Then I create a weekly cycle at the school level so that a member of each team can work together. This is the way we maintain a long-term goals very effectively. If we can create, I can call a unit, a basic unit of learning together or PLC, then it is possible that we can maintain the long-term goal effectively.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor. Okay, so yeah, now we have another question from yeah, participant. Okay,
Yes.
so the questions from NCK. I'm so sorry. This is like abbreviated words. Or so, how often should PLC, yeah, professional learning community development, be applied for the teachers? Who are the key people should be involved in this PLC? When is the best time for teachers to conduct this PLC? Thank you, Professor.
It's a very good question. I would like to make it clear that this is a modified Japanese lesson study, so it's different from Japanese lesson study. In Japanese lesson study, because it has a long experience for doing lesson study for more than 150 years, so a Japanese teacher only choose some topic to do lesson study. But as you see in developing countries like us, a teacher still has a strong belief that they have to teach to cover every topic. But in order to implement lesson study in such an environment like in Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, then I create a weekly cycles as a basic unit to do lesson study, the three steps. So this basic unit has a team of I call lesson study team. For example, first grade teacher, second grade teacher, and third grade teacher is composed of one team. And then fourth, fifth, sixth is another team. If you have junior high school, then junior one, two, three, another three. So you have three teams working, each team working in their subject. Usually I'm just mathematics as a domain. Then by the end of the week, they share this experience from three teams to the whole school. Then we can drive the whole school approach. Then by the end of the semester, we exchange with another school to do open class. We use open class as a place or to share experience among school. Then by the end of the year, annually, we have a big event like in Japan at say at the Khon University. A number of schools participate in open class. We invite an expert from Japan, Singapore, and so whatever. So we create this level of PLC. So weekly, semester, and annually. It's completely different from what we have been in Japan.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much, Professor. Okay, so we have next questions for you. Okay, so
Yes.
this is from Cambodia, from Mr. Suruliho. Okay, so yeah, he would like to say thank you to you as well. Okay, what is the significant difference between professional learning community and lesson study in Japan? Or they are the same? Thank you.
Uh, it, it depends on how we see. In Thailand, we can say that lesson study is one among professional learning community because the Ministry of Education in Thailand implement this policy in the school level So many schools have their own understanding about PLC, how they can create a professional learning community at their school level, at the district. But as I mentioned, as I explained, lesson study can be treat that PLC in that sense.
Yes, we are grateful to your insightful explanation. Okay, so yeah, a lot of questions are waiting for us for you. I'm sorry for you, Professor. Okay, so now it is us from Cambodia. Okay, from Kotsoka. Yeah, I don't know, Mr. or Miss. Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, so yeah, uh, so the participant just want to say thank you so much for sharing the implementation of PLC in Thailand. So he or she has two questions. What kind of approaches or a method to integrate PLC into Thailand teachers' context? And number two, what were challenges did you face to implement PLC, and how did you deal with those issues? Okay, thank you.
It's very great question, especially the first question. You see that in Thailand, sorry, in Japan, uh, the lesson study has been distinguished from the teaching approach. But here, when I introduced lesson study in Thailand, I introduced open approach as a teaching approach first, because we have to change the way our teacher teach first. So the method of introduce lesson study as a PLC, in my understanding, as a PLC in Thailand, is to incorporate the 4 step of teaching approach in 3 step of lesson study, because I would like to facilitate Thai teacher to work together instead of working lonely or separately as we usually done in the past. So because teaching approach is main activity in classroom teaching practice, that's why I introduce this and integrate these two things together. I will try to respond to the first question. And what is challenge is, at the beginning, I did not introduce the word lesson study. I introduced teaching approach first. That through the introduce of open-ended problem instead of use routine problem as we usually do and focus on right and wrong answer, but we encourage the teacher to design the problem situation which embedded open-ended problem together. Hopefully, this rich or fruitful mathematical activity can change the teacher belief that, oh, the student can think by themselves, not just to follow the technique that teacher is going to teach them. So this is very challenges for us. And then when I introduce the 4 step of open approach, in the first step, we pose the problem, and the most challenging is the second step. When the student try to solve the problem by themselves, the teacher have to stop talking. They have to change their role to observe the student idea. This is some more challenging during my 15 years. Usually the teacher will intervene in the step and try to say blah, blah, blah. This is a noise for the student to solve their own problem. But it still is a challenge for me. Okay, I think, yeah, because we have a very short time, I have to simplify my answer.
Yes, okay, thank you so much, Professor. So right now we got a question from Cambodia. Okay, so from Sukunti. Okay, so yeah, the message says, thanks, Professor, for sharing the method for mathematics thinking, but in my teaching, I got issue with diverse students, like weak students, lower students, like fast learner and slow learners, again, mixed up students in the classroom. Okay, so how can I teach them to get success together?
I think this is the way we see the student. That's a good question too. The difference, the individual difference is a nature, it's a natural, it's everywhere in the world. The teacher is different. So it's not a problem, it's not an obstacle. But we have to make use these different as a resources. That's why I focus on design the problem situation that's open enough to accommodate the student area. It is professionals, not just bringing some problem somewhere and give to the student. Problem cannot be given. This is a philosophy. So you have to change your philosophy of learning that the student have to have their own problem. So the teacher only decide the task or problem situation that hopefully this problem situation can open enough to accommodate the student idea. So the student engaged with this problem situation, as I show you in my slide. Yeah. Then the student engage in, and then they have their own problem. Then the focus is not the right and wrong answer, but the focus is to get the student idea. So the student idea behind the scene, they can reasoning, they can communicate their idea among the student in the classroom. Then we organize, they can collaboratively discussion. Then they become aware of their own idea. Then it becomes how to learn for them to solve unseen, unknown problem in the future. So you have to change the philosophy of learning. It is not the fault of the student. The student is different in natures.
Yes, thank you, Professor. Okay, so yeah, you are having a lot of questions. Okay, so next questions from MCU and Michael. Yeah, John F. Okay, so I'm so sorry that if I cannot pronounce your name correctly. Okay, so how did you successfully implement this transition both for the educators and learners? Thank you.
Oh, this a tough question too. Uh, when I planned a certain year projects, as I mentioned in some slides, then I see the the macro level of teacher education. Then I'm started with uh, implement a new way of teacher education program. The fifth year, the 5-year teacher education program, which is started in year 2004, we built up a new teacher education. Then when in the 5th year they have to do a black interns at the school level. When we decide some projects who working with us, then we send these student teacher in the 5th year. They have to spend 1 whole year at school. Then we send these student teacher to work with the school teacher. Then our faculty member as a teacher educator try to mentor both teacher and student teacher. We try to trajectory or indirectly mentoring the school teacher through our student teacher when we do open class at the school level. Because as I mentioned, we have a weekly cycles of implementing this idea. So we observe the project school. That's the way we try uh, to succeed in implementing these two innovation in the school level. So far as I show you some slide, during this 15 year, we started from 2 school, 2 project school. Now we expand across the country. We have like nearly 300 schools across the country and 8,000 educational personnel working with us, affecting more than 100,000 school teachers across the country.
Okay, Jess, thank you so much. So right now we have the message from our participant. Okay, from Sun Thierry. Okay, she says, thank you, Achan, for your great presentation. Based on your experiences, what are the effective techniques in applying open-ended approach in professional learning approach in higher education? Thank you.
Uh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. You mean
Okay,
open
okay,
approach
yeah, I will read again.
in high
Okay, so based on
in
your yeah, yeah, based on your experiences, what are the effective techniques in applying
oh,
open-ended
okay, I
approach
got it. Okay,
in
okay.
professional, okay, learning approach in higher education? Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question. It's continuing as I mentioned. We developed a new type of 5-year teacher education program at the university level. And in this teacher education program, we design the 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 major courses. The contents has been taught at the Faculty of Science for like 36 credit. One credit, it means 15 hours for the whole semester. And we create a PCK course at the Faculty of Education, like 48 credit, like problem solving, connection, communication, and school mathematics, which focus on a new way of introducing math content at the school level. This is the way we apply it. And then we assign the TARA to work with us as a lesson study team at the university level. Then first year, second year, third year, and then fourth year, and then the fifth year, we send them to the school, as I mentioned earlier. This is the way we work in the higher education levels.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm so sorry to remind participants that we have 3 more minutes for our speaker. Okay, so yeah, right now I have got a question, maybe the last question. Okay, so from Virya. Okay, Professor, can you share us the history of OA in teaching and learning? Thank you.
Oh, yes, I have to talk about history within 2 minutes, one minute. Okay, I'm yeah. You see that the most challenging is to change the teacher belief, because in developing country like us, the teacher has a strong belief that our student cannot think by themselves. So we have to teach blah blah blah. We deliver content to them. That the main things. So the history of introducing OA, open approach in Thailand is I dealing with this issue first. How to change teacher belief. Then I introduce the open-ended problem through the student teacher that, as I mentioned in my slide, 15 student teacher in 7 school nearby my university in 2002. This group of student teachers bring open-ended into the school. With their novice experience, I told them that you didn't teach anything, you didn't say anything. You just pose the problem to the student and observe the student idea and discuss with your homeroom teacher in order to change the strong belief of the school teacher. Then I'm succeeded in this introducing. Then the school teachers, I mean classroom teacher, have been discussed a very active with this. Why the student, our student can think, even incapable student who don't want to come to the math class. This is a big change in the history of OA when I introduced in Thailand. I can call it is a moment of development of open approach in Thailand. After I succeeded in this introducing, then I try again among a number of school in nearby Khon, more than 800 teachers try to use the open-ended approach in their school, like say five open-ended purpose, and then they have come to realize, oh, our student can think by themselves. Then I introduced the whole school approach at the first pioneer school, as I mentioned in 2006. Then we systematically developed the lessons activity by the school. This is a long history of how we introduce OA and incorporate in lessons activity during the last 15 years. Sorry, because I have only 1 or 2 minutes. I try to shorten my answer.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for being on time. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay.
It's
So
my pleasure.
yeah. So the professor presentation is finished. Thank you so much for choosing important topic for our
Welcome,
participants,
welcome.
as well as the other guest speakers that have been working hard for choosing the meaningful, insightful topics for our participants in this conference. Thank you so much.